Hello YouTube, this is KC Rift, and welcome back to my first video in my series on World War II. I'm going to start this blog off on the right foot, and that is at the beginning, as I have a particular affinity for Russian military equipment and the Russian army already. Let's start at the beginning with the Polikarpov I-15. I'm going to fly the I-15 BIS model here first, which, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, was a wing end engine upgrade for the I-15's original design. I-15 is one of the reserve aircraft under the Russian flag, and every player receives it when they start that game as Russians. The I-15 itself was a brainchild of one Nikolai Nikolaevich Polikarpov, the son of a Russian Orthodox priest born in 1892 in the village of Georgievsk in the state of Oryol. And in Russian, the state is also called Oblast, so Oblast Oryol, south and west of present-day Moscow. Polikarpov was fascinated with aviation, in fact, to the point that he eventually ended up disappointing his father, who wanted him to follow in his footsteps as a priest, and abandoned that in 1911. Instead went to the St. Petersburg Polytechnical University, where he started learning about engineering and aircraft at the time. He graduated in 1916, and after that immediately went to go work for one Igor Sikorsky, who, if any of you at all are familiar with the Russian Air Force, is a mainstay name even today. Alright, we're going to circle around here, see if I can drop in on this guy. Yeah, it looks like I can get him. A lot of people attracted to him. Yeah, so he actually worked with Igor Sikorsky on one of the first four-engine dedicated bombers called Ilya Muromets. And the Ilya Muromets was not only the first dedicated bomber, but it was massive for its time. Massive airplane. It's not one of the ones that you can fly in War Thunder, which is unfortunate, but it's a little too early, I think, in the timeline to be available for this game. And I'm gonna get him, if I can get another track on him here. So yeah, Polikarpov managed to survive the Russian Revolution and went on to design virtually every one of the initial aircraft put to work in the Russian Air Force. That included the I-1, the R-1, which is reconnaissance, the U-2, and that of course is not to be confused with the U-2 of the American Air Force, the I-3, and then the R-5, which was a reconnaissance / light bomber. And oh, got him! Oh, look at the shrapnel, and that'll show you what a little bit of dedication and some 7.62s will do for you, I guess. What a great shot. Yeah, so this was one of Polikarpov's most successful airplanes, the I-15, but he certainly himself was not above failure, and in fact with his I-6 design, which was an early design of his, it failed to meet the expectations of the commissar timelines and capabilities, and he, along with 450 aircraft engineers, were actually arrested and imprisoned in 1929. For espionage and sabotage. Of course, everybody was a little paranoid back then in Stalin's government, so it was not. This story is not terribly unusual or unexpected, I should say. And he was, of course, along with the others, sentenced to death. However, once the Russians realized that Polikarpov essentially was the backbone of their nascent air force, they changed his sentence pretty quick to 10 years of forced labor. Not to be confused with hard labor. Instead of breaking rocks in Siberia somewhere, he was actually put back to work, working on aircraft, and he was able to demonstrate in 1931 his true capabilities with his successful launch of his I-5 design, and his 10-year sentence was then reduced again to a conditional one, which is basically saying, we're going to put you on probation, thank you for your service. Let's see if we can find a target here. So Polikarpov went on to then work on this beautiful aircraft, the I-15 Chaika. And you have, I actually was, while doing some of this research, I found that there was a lot of disagreement on whether or not this bird, the I-15, was called the Chaika. And Chaika in Russian means gull wings. And not in the BIS, not in this model, which we'll talk about here shortly, but in the I-15 original model, the wings came down, or came to the fuselage and then arced down to attach, and it looks very much like the shoulders and wingspan of a seagull. When you're looking at it head on or from the back, it looks like that arch shoulder look, and so they nicknamed it the seagull, the Chaika. And the I-15, along with the I-153, were both nicknamed the Chaika. I think, and I will have to look this up when we do a video on the 153, but I believe the 153 might have officially been named the Chaika, but the Russians did indeed affectionately call the 115 the Chaika as well. So the first successful flight of the I-15 was in 1934, and that was flown by one Valery Pavlovich Cheklov. And Cheklov was born in 1904, the son of a boilermaker, so had no legacy military experience there himself. But when he first saw an airplane flying over in 1919, he pretty much dropped everything and immediately said, "Hey, that's for me," and went to join the Red Army. It's said the very next day. Oh, getting some shots here. Who's on me? I'm gonna climb a little bit, see if I can outclimb him. Not sure if I've got more speed. Looks like, saved by my comrades. Alright. So yeah, he was born and lived in Nizhny Novgorod, which is today Russia's 5th largest city. Yeah, so Cheklov himself earned probably to this day an unprecedented wealth of fame and notoriety in Russia. Well, this is going to be just a turkey shoot. Alright, got this guy to pull off. Let's see if we can't take him down. So Cheklov even managed to attract the attention of Stalin himself, who dubbed him the new Soviet man, as this guy was the ideal communist in Stalin's eyes. The Russian Superman, if you will. Oh, I only got an assist on that one. Unfortunately for Cheklov, he was not immune to, while he may have been immune to the laws at the time of man, he was not immune to the laws of physics. And he died in December of 1938 while on an unauthorized test flight of one of Polikarpov's prototypes, which happened to be the I-180 fighter. And if there's truth in the story, he flew the aircraft well above the safety altitude limits that had been put in place for the prototype, and they think, at least as crude as investigation techniques probably were back then, they believe that the engine froze on him and he was just not able to recover. He crashed and died on the runway as it came in too fast. Speaking of engines, the Russians originally wanted to go with a more powerful American-made Wright R-1820 Cyclone, which they designated the M25, the Shetsov M25. However, and he's going to go down. Nice. Got the kill on that one even. So, but the process of getting the license from the Americans turned out to be a pretty lengthy one, and so instead, to get the production model going, they went with the British-made Bristol Jupiter, which they designated the Shetsov M22. This was a radial 9-cylinder engine, and you can actually fly the M22 in War Thunder. It's one of the first reserve aircraft that you get. This design was licensed to the Russians for use in production, and while not ideal, it was powerful enough for the production aircraft and used from 1934 to 1936, when they finally were able to secure license for the Cyclone. So they did switch in 1936 to the more powerful engine, the Shetsov M25, also a radial engine, which produced a whopping 775 horsepower compared to the 450 or so of the M22. And this is mammoth for the size of this aircraft. That was a huge amount of power, and very... oh, you're not going to get away from me. Get over that. Oh, treat. Oh, he's going down. Awesome. There's a massive amount of power for today on this aircraft. The Russians built 284 of this aircraft in their first run, and another 287 were built by the Construcciones Aeronauticas, the which were part of the Spanish Republicans during the Spanish Civil War. And of course they flew these against the nationalists during that Civil War, which were supported and supplied by the Germans. So it was a nice proxy war, even way back then, to kind of compare one air force against another. And the I-15 did remarkably well in that conflict. So we were talking about the BIS here earlier, and this, as I've been flying and has been really put through the ringer, was the BIS, the BIS model I-15 BIS, and that, as the original I-15 with the gold wings saw more of the battlefield, the pilots began to complain about its lack of visibility. As I mentioned before, the wings kind of come down and touch the fuselage, and that provides about a 3-foot area on either side of directly in front of the pilot that he can't see. So it's blocking that area in front of him. And so as the pilots began to complain about that, they instead decided to do away with the gull wing and raise the wing itself up on pylons. They extended it out another couple, I want to say 1 or 2 feet as well, and gave it a little bit more lift. And this model, all of the engines, all of the production models came with the M25 engine, which made for a pretty significant upgrade from the I-15 with the M22. See if I can get the... Oh, I think I just landed. There's a tree. Oh, good grief. Alright, yeah, so there were 2,400 of the BIS upgrades produced between 37 and 39, and that made the total production... oh my... I don't know how I survived that. Took my wing. Oh, there's my other wing. Alright, I think it's time to head home. This guy has done way more than enough. So the total production from 1934 to 1939 was 3,313 aircraft. A huge number of aircraft, especially for its day, for a single model. By 1941 even, there were still around 1,000 of the I-15s in the Soviet inventory, and they'd also, that doesn't even include the successful sorties and combat engagements that the Spanish had employed in their Civil War, and they were also sent out to Mongolia and China, both against the Japanese and there we go, got my wing finally. Alright, so this guy's going down after a remarkable stint, and I was taken out by a 153. Yep, that's the Chaika 153, I-153, and we'll talk about that in a later video. Alright, so now we're going to go with the 115, and there you can see perfect demonstration of the gold wing effect right there. So this is the cowling is reduced on this, and the gull wing, you can see how that could probably limit some visibility for the pilot, both left and right forward below him, especially when you consider that these were used as light ground attack, and they're one of their first capacities. Not being able to see your target when you're trying to drop a bomb on him is probably a critical flaw. Alright, so I think we are on the brink of losing this engagement. I think I'm going to try for some more ground targets, which, by the way, I'm horrible at. I just don't go, I pretty much try and fly at full throttle, and trying to attack what amounts to a stationary target at full throttle in any aircraft is not that easy, especially when you're shooting 7.62. And here we go, treetops, thank you. Oh, I suck, total failure. Take another pass here, doesn't look like it's going to matter, we're going to lose this engagement. But yeah, so due to politics, and let's face it, everything in Stalin's Soviet Union was politics, Polikarpov's factory was closed and dismantled in 1940. He went on to become a professor at the Moscow Aviation Institute, but unfortunately fell prey to cancer and died on July 30th of 1944. Oh, there's some bushes again. 1944. Yeah. Try one more swing around. Doesn't look like it's going to matter. So the Chaika I-15 was a plane that was really between two worlds, built as a biplane in an era where everybody was going to monoplanes. And while certainly not leading edge technology... Oh, look at that, Saved by the Bell. While certainly not leading edge technology for its time, it was a very stout and successful aircraft that was cheap to produce and easy to fly. Polikarpov was a man who rose from obscurity to a place in a permanent and admirable mark in aviation history, thanks to this aircraft. And let's look, we didn't do too bad. Yeah, it's not a bad score at all. Second rank, took out a fair number of aircraft. Alright, so I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll be going on to the Chaika 153 next as my next video. Subscribe below and like this video. If you'd like to start a discussion, please feel free down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon. Out for now.